need of those resources, and due to which the process can go to blocked. In the sense, it is doing some IO operations, input output operations. So that time can be utilized by some other process in the queue. So that we have added one more state which is called as a blocked state, and it became a 3-state, and altogether there is a 5-state model including your new and exit. And then also we found that there are certain issues related with the blocking in case if there are multiple processes. So if you have only one queue, if to wait in the blocking state, and your the dispatcher need to go through the entire queue for a particular process for an event, whenever means IO blocking in the sense it is waiting for an event. If that event, I mean whichever the resource it is interested for. So we thought, okay, so there are certain process. If we are going to have in a single queue, there could be issues related with the browsing the entire queue for the multiple process. We could go for say maybe there could be a waiting in a longer time, and you may have to go through the entire buffer of the blocked queue. So we had seen that for every event we can have a multiple queue. That was another option. Still there could be problems due to a process in the blocked state, and maybe it is waiting for longer time, and it is consuming your memory. The main reason means it is these queues are in your main memory itself, and as we know that the main memory is of the lesser space because of the cost constraints. We don't want to keep on extend our main memory. So we went for another state which you call it as a suspend state. The suspend state is the one where the process which is there in the block state of your main memory can be pushed onto the secondary memory. It's a secondary memory wherein you just put it for a temporary time, so that later on, in case if you need, you can get it back to the ready state. That was the idea behind going for suspend state, so that that space can be utilized for some other process in the ready. I mean, which is created and which is interested to get it executed. Okay, so we've seen the process models like started with the 2-state, 3-state, and 5-state, and 6-state, etc. So I've shown you the transition as well, not only the states and the how, I mean, what are the transitions during the every states. Okay, so that was about the process execution. When I say process, we need to know what is a process, and what are the components involved in the process, and how you're going to control the process. Control in the sense, as we know, there is a multi-processing involves, and there has to be some information relevant to the particular process. I need to get it back when I come back, right? So you have to have some memory, temporary memory, wherein you can save all those relevant information of the process from which you are going to. That is a parent process, which you call. So from parent process, you are going to switch to the next. Maybe you call it as a child process, whatever. So you that the switching from one process to another process is a context switching, means so that you can save certain information relevant to that particular process in a particular memory of the specific process. There is a process control information, or there is the process control block. You have a PCB wherein you maintain certain information relevant to the process. Okay. So we have seen also, if I remember, we've discussed about the reasons for process creation and the termination, and what are the entities of the process. So when a new process is created, which is going to have most of the information like process ID. Each process will be given a unique ID whenever it is created, and you will have some process state when the process is in which state, whether it is ready state, running, etc. And you have the memory, and there is a control informations, etc., etc. And also you can have the information related to the process about the usage, the memory, or the cost, etc., the time. That is you will maintain all this information in the process control block. Okay, so let us see the process description. I think I have started this. So as we know that the operating system has to maintain various resource management. So this can be managed through controlling certain events, in the sense, resource in the sense, I'm waiting for a particular event, you call it as any event. Maybe I need to print something, or I need to access some memory. So I need to know whether that memory is free. Free in the sense, suppose if it is used, currently I am writing something onto that memory by some other process, I cannot access it simultaneously. I hope you got the point. So I need to verify whether whatever the resource I am interested, is it available for me at the right instant. For which there are certain various objects involved in the operating system through which we can accomplish all these issues, like you can fulfill using the various kernel objects. So operating system should control the way, has to manage the resources, something like you call it as an event management, and it also schedules and dispatches the process, which just now I have explained. So it's something like this picture, wherein you have multiple processes. So assuming my processor also has one of the resource, currently the process 1 is using the processor, in the sense that is running, and this may need 2 IOs as well, input outputs. And process 2, as you can see, which is also there in the main memory, because the virtual memory is nothing but when the process is created, you will have certain space for every process. There is a memory allocation is done for every process. So which you call it as a virtual memory for that every process creation. So process 2 also in the main memory, but you can say that it is blocked, and maybe this, I don't think I have given another, yeah. So we can consider that here, if you look at this picture, process P1, supposing using this IO, and we can see through the dashed lines if process P2 is trying to access this IO, then P2 can go to the blocked state. In a sense, what I mean here is both process, if they are interested to use the same IO, which is not possible, so including your processor. So at that time, in a uniprocessor, which I have highlighted multiple times, it's a sequential execution, but because of interleaving between the process, the user get a feel that it is running multiple processes, or there is a multitasking or multiprocessing. Okay. Yeah. So this is what is shown here, because the dashed line indicates that the IO is needed by two processes and only one process can only one process can avail the particular IO. Okay. Supposing if there are these IOs, one more IO which we have shown, it is now at particular time maybe only using only P1, and this other IO is used by process 2, and say the memories, depending upon which memory you are accessing. So memory we have shown here as it's in random example. You are trying to access a memory, depending upon, supposing the one of the process which also need the same process, it goes to blocked. In the sense, it cannot use simultaneously. Yeah. So in operating system, to manage various processes and resources, it should maintain certain tables, like your memory tables, IO tables, etc. So the memory table, so which keeps track of the main memory and the secondary memory. It could be, whatever the memories. So, and the memory table, which is responsible for allocation of the memory to the process. And it should, whenever the process is created, it should calculate what is the amount of memory is needed for that process. It's for that particular process. So it is allocating the memory for the process, that is main memory as well as the secondary memory, here. And there are any protection involved, like depending upon you are in which mode, whether you are in user mode or the privileged mode. Okay, so that also will keep a record in the memory table. And also you can have certain information which are needed to manage your virtual memory. So that is the job of your, the memory table contains. And IO table, which is also part of your, this one, the control structure you can see here, which will maintain certain IO informations. Okay. Which IO device is available or can be assigned to a particular process. So which is free. So those information we could get it through the IO table, and you can have the status of IO operation and the location in main memory, which is given for the source or the destination of the IO transfer, which is your source. Suppose I want to do some file transfer. So which is the source and which is the destination, what are the address relevant to those things, you will get it through the IO table. Okay. And as you can see there, you also maintain some file tables. will maintain certain, and you have process tables. So various process. So each process has got certain information relevant to the process. So let us see the process. Or maybe I have in the. So this is information relevant. I mean, which I already explained. So the process control structure. So process control structure, you can see, I mean, whatever the process table, and where, I mean, here the information related to the process. So process will consist of at least sufficient memory to hold the program and data of that process. So that is the, I mean, should have enough space. And you will have a temporary memory, so that you can, if you want to switch from one process to other process, you can save information related to that particular process. Okay, so there is, each process is associated with the various attributes which are used by the operating system for process control, and that is called as a process control block. Okay, so that, I mean, the whenever a process is created, you will, there's a process image is created, and which has which is a collection of your program data and stack and certain attributes of the process, which you call it as a process image. Okay, so you have the process image will have the user data, as I said, data, program, stack, and the PCB. So the data, which is, it's a RAM, I mean, the writable area, the memory, where you are, I mean, any process needs certain data for execution. So this is your, the memory area, I mean, memory or user data through on which the process is executing. And you have a user program, the instructions, and there is a stack. You have a stack which is of last in first out, which is associated with the particular process. So this is used to store parameters and the calling address. In the sense, whenever I switch, I will save the return address of this process before I switch. So that address need to be stored in the stack. Then you have process control block. So the data needed by the OS to control the process. So those informations we will have in the process control block. So these are the information or the entities which we have in the process control block. You have status registers, program counter, condition codes, status information, stack pointers, and identifiers. So, which is, I mean, each, as I said, every process is when it is created will be given with a unique ID. So identifier for the process and identifier of the process that has created this process, which we mean here. Who, suppose in, whenever you will get to know when I discuss the particular operating system. Say maybe in a main program I am creating one process, and that process can create the different process. Okay, so you will call it as something like a parent process and the child process, the process which has created the other process. Okay, yeah. So also you have the various control information. If you list here the scheduling and status information, data structuring, inter-process communication, and privilege, whether you are in the which mode, memory management, resource ownership, etc. Okay. So scheduling and status information is it's which we need to, I mean, which it's very easy to understand because you are in which state, whether you are in the ready or the running state, and what is the priority assigned to that process, and scheduling related information. Okay, so which algorithm you are having for the particular process. Okay. So whenever a process is created, it will be there in your, it's a user process in the virtual memory, and if it has to be executed, it should be uh, given for the, I mean, it should be loaded in the main memory for the execution. Look at the stack with the multiple process. You have, you can see here, there is a process identification, process state information, process control information. We've seen the list of attributes relevant to the process control information, and you have a user stack and private user space, and means local variable, global variable, etc. for the particular process. Okay, so this is your process control block having all these informations. So your process state information, which consists of various, I mean, process registers. And of course, when the process is running, the information is in the registers. So whenever the process is interrupted, in the sense there is a process switching. So all this register information must be saved so that it can be restored. Okay. So before you switch, you save all the register information in some space. Okay. So you will have so many registers involved in it. To control this, you can have control and status registers, stack pointers, so that I can push it and pop it later. Okay. Yeah, that process control information also I have shared. It has got various ID and various bits. So now let us see this is your the process list, the list structure. Okay, so the process list structure is shown here, with which you can see that as we know, the process control block is the very important data structure. So each process control block contains information about the process that is needed by the operating system. Okay, so the blocks are read and modified by each module in the operating system. Every module in the operating system keeps on. So like your scheduling, resource allocation, interrupt processing, and maybe you need to have certain information about performance monitoring and its costing, etc. All these informations are stored in your process control block. So here this diagram shows the process list structure. So a process which is running now, this is the process at present used by the processor when it is executing. It is executing. So supposing I have a number of processes in the ready queue, as I have already explained this diagram in the last class, you have a ready queue and maybe based on the specific algorithm you have it in the OS, the process is assigned to processor for the execution. So depending upon the whatever the algorithm, as we have to have a multi-processing, I cannot continue with the one process throughout. It needs to switch to the other process if depending upon the, I mean, if there are certain interrupts or whatever the case. We shall see those things later on. So this is your ready list. This is your running list and the block. Maybe there are the various processes which are waiting for an event. Those can be stored in the block queue. So this you call it as a process list structure. Okay. So now, so what is the role of the process control block? So we've seen there is a process. What are the? So it is very important because it is controlling the whole process. It contains all the information about the process which are needed by the operating system. So the blocks are read and are modified by virtually every module in the operating system that is involved with the scheduling, resource allocation, all these things. Okay. So this I just explained this. So let us see what is the process control. As we know, the processor, specifically the processor which we are going to discuss, it's an ARM processor. It works in the basic mode like user mode and the privileged mode. Okay. So your user mode, you call it as a less privileged mode. It's a less privileged mode, and you have more privileged mode, something like a system mode, control mode, or kernel mode. Because the operating system space, you call it as a kernel space, and which is the, I mean, I cannot easily access the operating system, right? It's a protected. It's in protected. So this so I hope you know the reason for having two nodes, which I have highlighted here. It is necessary to protect the operating system and various tables involved with the operating system, like your IO table, memory table, etc., process control blocks. And I mean, it should not be interference, and there should not be any interference by your user programs. Okay, so it should not disturb so that easily. And all its instructions, registers, and I mean whatever the relevant information which we have it should not be edited easily by the user. So this level of control is not necessary, and for safety is not desirable for the. So this type of a safety is we won't need for your user programs. That is what is meaning. So user programs can be, you need not have that much protection for the same, but the kernel space or the system space or the system mode, whenever you are, you cannot so easily change the whatever the information you have it for the particular process whenever you are executing. Okay, so which maintains certain the information which I have already highlighted in your process control block. So here these are the typical functions of an operating system. Please note that this will not include your the functions or the services provided by the real-time operating system. So far I am discussing the basics or general operating system, because without understanding what is a process, there is no point in discussing the how the real-time operating system executes, because we begin with the process creation, process switching, that is process scheduling, and running multiple processes for any of our application. Okay, yeah. So here there are some functions listed like process management, in which you can see here process creation and termination, process scheduling and dispatching, process switching. Please note that there is a difference between scheduling and dispatching and switching. Can you tell me the difference between what is dispatching and switching? Yeah. Yeah, Tanay? Hello? Are you there? Don't simply turn on and
Ma'am, dispatching is selecting which task to run next, right?
dispatching is?
Basically selecting which task we need to run next.
Okay, what is switching?
Ma'am, switching is actually like what do you say? Going to the task and
Yeah, you're right. Continue.
yeah, ma'am. Basically, dispatching is where you decide, and switching is where you actually do it. Is what I wanted to say. Like,
No, because why we have given in the process management, there are certain events listed, right? So we have not included as, there is a separation, you can see. Process scheduling
yes,
and
ma'am.
yeah, and there is a process switching. Can you clarify what is the difference? What you have understood?
Ma'am, give me 1 minute, ma'am. Let me just try thinking about.
Yeah. Anybody?
Ma'am, in switching, you have to like store the current status in of the process, etc. Right? Like
Yes.
dispatching is just
Yeah. So switching is, I need to, I have shown that, I've already explained. You need to save the information of the process which you are going to, switch
switch
to the
to.
next.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is switching.
Yes, ma'am.
Dispatching is, it is decided by the, again, whenever I am switching to the next process, it is decided by your scheduler over there, right? Based on certain priority or which algorithm you have it. So this is dispatching. It is allocating the processor for that particular process. That is called as a dispatch. I hope you got the difference. Are you clear?
Understood, ma'am.
Yeah. Also, there is a memory management, which I already discussed, I/O management, and there are certain support functions like your interrupt handling, accounting information. That is how much time or the memory you have utilized, and maybe you need to have certain monitoring. So these are some of the functions which are listed over here. Yeah. So when a process is created, there is a unique identifier is given to the process. There is a process ID, and also it has to allocate the process space, like your process image, including your stack, etc. And you need to initialize the process control block for that particular process, and set the appropriate linkages. Like, for example, each scheduling queue as a linked list. Okay, so when then new process must be put in the ready or suspend list. Okay, so which list you're having it? I have shown the process list structure, and you need to create or expand other data structures like your accounting information, all those things. So these are the things are part of your, part of the process creation. Yeah, this is about your process switching. Due to what are the reasons the process can switch? So you can see here, maybe due to the interrupt. So the interrupt is something like due to an external event. So when a process is running, maybe it is not part of your process, maybe due to some other external source, the process may have to switch. Okay, so that is called as, that is a cause. So it's a, the mechanism you call it as an interrupt or a process. Through interrupt you are switching from one process to other process, and you can have something like a trap. So in a process which is running, maybe there are certain events because of which, it is because of the certain events within the process. Maybe your memory faults or some other faults, or any instruction faults, or any error through which you may have to switch. Or just to have a difference, for example, if I press a reset key, it is an external interrupt, right? So whenever I press a reset button, it is an interrupt. So processor may have to go to the interrupt service routine of your reset service. Maybe some of the registers may have to clear, all of whatever. And the trap could be, within the system, you are trying to do some memory faults, okay, within the process, through which the process may have to switch. And there is a supervisor call. So this is means it's you try to access the protected area. Okay, so it's not easily you can go to the operating system. Through some mechanism, you're going to switch to the OS. You will make use of certain call exclusively to go to the root or the kernel. Okay. So these are the mechanism of interrupting the execution of a process. Yeah, in the various interrupts, I've listed some of that: clock interrupt, I/O interrupt, the memory faults. I hope you know about some of the details. So for example, clock interrupt, whether the currently running process has been executing for the maximum allowable time slice, something like in your round robin. In round robin scheduling, you allocate certain timings. For example, for every 1 second or 2 seconds you want to interleave between the process. So there is a timer interrupt. So it's interrupts for that particular process. So that the process which is running will go to the ready, and from ready it gets a chance for the execution. Okay. Similarly, you have IO interrupt. So IO interrupt determines, IO action of for which process it has to be. So operating system moves all the corresponding block process to the ready state. So here which determines what action it has used for that particular process. It is waiting for an event. Maybe we'll get to know there are some event registers, event through which you are going to. Certain event, I'm waiting for an event or any resources. Okay. And you have memory faults, that this you are trying to access a memory which is not existing, or you are trying to give some wrong address. Yeah. So change of a process state, when you're going to have a switching. So this is quite simple to understand. Whenever you have a change for a process state, means from ready, running, etc. So in that case, you have to save the context. Okay, save the context of the processor, including your program counter and other registers, if necessary. So these are the certain steps involved when you change the process state. And you need to update the process control block of the process that is currently running. And you move the process control block of the process to the appropriate queue. Supposing if you are in the block queue, if event occurs, then you can go to the ready. Okay. So because I cannot straight away go to the running state, as I already explained the reason behind. So the process which is running should be either go to the ready list. At a time only one process can get a chance for the execution. So that information will be, whenever you have a change in the state from ready, running, blocked, etc. So, and which process can get a chance for the execution, that also decided by your scheduler and the dispatcher. And update the process control block of the process selected, that is changing the state of this process to running. And you also update the memory management data structures, memory allocation, which relevant information about the memory management. And finally, restore the context of the processor to that which existed at the time. Here it's something like it's a very routine process of you switch from a main program to a subroutine, let us say. So whenever you do so, or you're calling any function, whenever you're calling a function, you need to know where you're supposed to start execution, before which you save the information, that is the address, the return address in the memory, some temporary memory, push it. Maybe I want to do some other relevant information of your accumulator or anything onto the temporary memory, and you go to the EOS switch. And after executing that, while coming back, I need to restore the information of the process from which I have switched from the memory. That is from your running, ready, etc. Okay, so this is about the process. Yeah, one more thing I want to mention as well. There is a difference between the process switching and the mode switching. The mode switching is something like whether you are in the user mode or the privileged mode. I hope you got this. Supposing you are in the user mode, when I start talking about later on the architecture, you will get to know there is a user mode. The processor will work on the two modes, user mode or the privileged mode. Okay. So the mode switching also involves, as system level approach, you are going to switch from the normal user mode to the other mode through certain what do you call the call function to go to the root. Okay, so there is a difference between the mode switching as well as the process switching. Please try to understand. I mean, mode switching is a type of process switching. Okay, so even in the mode switching, you save the context of the current program being executed, and you set the program counter for the starting address of the interrupt being given, and it switches from the normal user mode to the privileged mode, so that the intra processing code may be included in your saved, that is privileged mode. So the sequence of operations remains the same. Okay. Yeah. Now let us see the relationship between the operating system and the user process. How this is shown in this particular diagram. You can see here. There is the picture A, which shows that separate kernel. So this is your say very traditional approach. So in this, to execute the kernel of the operating system, okay, outside of any process. So in this approach, what happens is when a currently running process is interrupted or there is any supervisor call, okay, the mode context of this process is saved and control is passed to the kernel. Okay, so you can see that. Supposing I want to switch from user mode to the kernel mode, that process mode will be, the control is given to the kernel, and kernel will decide and to come back to the next process. Okay, that is, the operating system has its own region of memory to use. Maybe it's something like we have seen your sort of types of kernels, monolithic and microkernels. So this is somewhat similar to that. Maybe the explanation which we can see. So yeah, and another alternative we can see here, the operating system functions execute within user process, something like your microkernels. So you have some memory given for each process. So the entire OS information, you don't have it in the same single space. Instead, you can have some OS, some space can be given. It's a second type which we can see here. So that is to execute operating system software in the context of user process. The operating system is it's a collection of various routines that user calls to perform various functions. So the various functions can be called by the user. I mean, you can control the, what I mean here is, instead of having the whole information related to the operating system in the symbol, you can have a job wise. This is the second type. And another alternative we can see, it's a visualize in a different way. It's an operating system is a collection of system process. Okay, that is the software that is part of the kernel executes in a kernel mode. So in this case, the major kernel functions are organized as a separate process. Organized as a separate process. So as you can see in the diagram. Okay. So there may be small amount of process switching code that is executed outside of any process. There could be in this approach. So these three different approaches are shown how you can, to execute the various process. So this is just I have shown what is a process. Process has got all these. This is the process structure or the data structure of the process. Yeah. So the same thing I have I've just explained. Anyway, let me in figure A, this one, as you can see, a currently running process is interrupted or issues a supervisor call. The mode context of this process is saved and control is passed to the kernel. Okay. So concept of process is considered apply only to user programs. The operating system code is executed as a separate entity, as you can see in the figure A. So operating system is a separate entity. Traditional way of having is that. And the second approach, the B, at any given point, the operating system is managing and process images. A separate kernel stack is used to manage calls, returns while the process in the kernel mode. Okay, that's what you can have it. You need not just rely on the single operating system. So OS code and data are in the shared address space and are shared by all user process. Okay. So the most information which is common for all the process are stored in the kernel space, and other information you can have it in the process. If any mode switch occurs within the same process, then this method is advantageous. Yeah. Otherwise, it is a time consuming, because you can see if I have to switch from one mode to other, another mode. So then I need to go to the root and there has to be switching. So it is a time taking operation, but you can have a modular approach in this. And the third one, as I have shown, your process and the operating systems, and you can share it. So the major kernel functions are organized as separate processes. There may be small amount of process switching code that is executed outside of any process. This is the third approach. Whenever there is a switching happens. Yeah, advantage. There are certain advantages with this, which imposes program design using modular operating system with a minimal clean interface between the modules. And some non-critical OS functions are conveniently implemented as separate processes. These two are the I mean, these are the advantages of the third approach. Okay, so if you want any more clarity, you can ask. Otherwise, yeah, there are certain characteristics with the process. So the process characteristics, because as we are going to see what is the thread. I mean, the difference between the process and the thread. So unless you understand what is a process and what is the process list structure and what is the process control block and data structure specifically. I mean here, unless you understand the process data structure, we may not be able to explain what is a thread. Fine. So the process, let us try to understand what is. Process includes a virtual address space to hold the process image, and from time to time which may be allocated control or ownership of resources should have. I mean, at a particular instant, I'm using the various resources such as your main memory, IO devices and files, IO channels, etc. So the operating system performs a protection function to prevent unwanted interference between the processes with respect to resources. So the resources could be a processor itself. Okay, that is the main feature or the characteristics of processes. The resource ownership. Supposing I am using a particular process, a particular resource, resource. So how do if I have to switch to the other process, or currently I am using a particular resource, then the other process may not be able to use it. Something like a process ownership. So there are certain how we can handle those while switching among the different processes. So we shall have a more discussion on those topics. For the timing, you try to understand that the main characteristics is resource ownership. The second thing is scheduling or execution. So execution of a process follow an execution path. So one or more programs, right? So you can follow certain trace of informations when you schedule it. Okay, trace is something like it's a process image. You've got various. So the execution may be interleaved with that of the other process. So there is a switching between the different processes. So the process has an execution state in which you can have running, ready, etc. and a dispatching priority, and is the entity that is scheduled and dispatched by the operating system. So altogether I can say that this is if you understand this much information, you've understood about what is a process. Okay. So this is the main characteristics of the process. So it needs to switch, for which we have to have an idea of how the scheduling is done, and whenever there is a switching, so there are certain change in the states, right? So all this we have to understand. We need to. The resource ownership and scheduling execution are the characteristics of the process. So these two characteristics could be treated independently by the operating system. Okay, please note that they are treated independently. The reason is, maybe I'll tell you the reason when I talk about the thread. So to distinguish these two characteristics, the unit of dispatching is usually referred to as a thread. Yeah. So I wanted to come to this point. Fine. So you have given the two characteristics just to discriminate between the process and the thread. We need to distinguish between the process and the thread. That those two characteristics are shown separately. Okay, now you can have, just try to understand. The resource ownership is usually referred to as a process or a task. Okay. So the resource, whenever a process is created, it is given with a particular memory or various resources, which are the resources are used. And if initially I started executing that process, currently I'm holding that process. The resources. If any other process is interested to make use of that, I need to, based on certain whatever the way in which the mode of through which I can give my resource to the other. Okay, that is ownership of resource. It is you can clearly make a point for the process. So whenever I'm switching between the process is can be given with the multiple threads, in the sense smaller pieces of units of a process are called as threads. There will be a switching or interleaving between there are interleaving between the threads. Here the whole process is divided into the smaller unit of work or the smaller jobs, so that you call it as a thread. Even thread has to have as the same information as we have shown what the process. Okay, so in a multi-threaded environment, so the process is defined as unit of resource allocation and unit of protection. So the process is associated with the virtual space, which holds your process image, okay, like your memory, data memory, stack memory, process control block, etc. And protected access to processors, other process files, and IO resources. Okay, so this it is which is associated with the to have some controlled access, which I mean here, for various resources. Okay, so this diagram shows the threads, that is threads and the process. So within a process, there may be one or more threads, as I just mentioned. You can have a small piece of unit, but I can have, there are different ways in which you can show the structure. This shows is one process, one thread, one process, multiple thread, and multiple process having single threads, multiple process, multiple threads. There are the different ways you can have. So you have, yeah, I hope you got it. What is the difference between the process and the thread? So within a process, there could be one or more threads, in which case you will have a thread execution state. Thread also it's, I mean here, say I am dividing the whole job into smaller pieces. Again, when I divide into smaller piece of unit, you need to have certain information related to that particular thread as well. So whether that thread is given a chance for the execution means it's a which is in which state. When you interleave between the various process, okay, in that case you need to know whether it is ready, running, etc. And there is a context saving and execution stack and some per thread static storage for local variables. You need to have some certain, I mean it is exclusively for that particular thread. You can have some variables related to that particular thread and access to the main memory and resources of that process. You can because since you are part of the main process, how you'll be able to access the certain resources of the parent process. And those are shared with all other threads in that process. It's a global variable. It's shared by all the threads of that particular process. Okay. Yeah. So this is just to show the single thread and multi-threaded process models. So you can see that single threaded process model this illustrates. This will give you the clear picture of between the threads and the process. I mean, in the point of view of how you manage the process. It is process management. So this diagram shows how you are able to distinguish between the process and threads with respect to when you manage. Okay. In a single threaded process model, as you can see this diagram, the representation of process includes its process control block and user address space, as well as user and kernel stacks to manage call return behavior of the execution of the process. So while the process in running, processor registers are controlled by that process. Okay, and contents of these registers are saved when the process is not running. Okay, but in the multi-threaded environment, there is a still single process control block. You can see that there is only single process control block and user address space associated with the process. But there are separate stacks for each thread. As you can see, there is a temporary memory for each thread as well as a separate control block for each thread containing register values, priority, your process control block information. You call it as a thread control block, TCB. Similar to your process, you have a control information related to the threads. So I hope you got the difference between the single threaded process and the multi-threaded process model. In the multi-threaded process model, you divide the whole process into smaller. I can access each thread can also access whatever the information of that parent process. Okay, so this is your single process and single thread. Okay, yeah. Okay, there are certain benefits of threads with respect to performance implications. It's just listed over here. So when you have a thread, so there is a less time to create a new thread in an existing process. I hope you agree with this. Maybe you need more time to create a new process than creating a new thread. Okay, so takes lesser time, and also it takes lesser time to terminate a new thread than a new process. I mean, entire process. And also it takes less time to switch between two threads in the same process than to switch between the process. Please try to understand. So with respect to the performance, so it's what we want to highlight is it's easier to, I mean, it takes lesser time to create a new thread and less time to terminate the thread and less time to switch between the threads. So the threads enhance the efficiency in communication between the different executing programs as well. Okay, so these are the, I mean, what I conclude is, but if I have a, but it's something like if I keep on have more threads, again whenever I switch between the threads, so there could be a the time taken to switch. Again, there has to be switching time. When we, depending upon if I have to, if I keep on add more number of threads, and if they have to use a specific algorithm for switching between the threads, then maybe some of the process thread may not get a chance, since maybe it takes more time if we have more number of threads. There are certain the drawbacks as well. You'll get to know when we discuss more detail. Yeah. So these are the thread functionality. The key states of thread are running, ready, and blocked, similar to the process. And you can switch from one thread to the other thread. Okay. So there is something like spawning. I have shown that is something like you suspend. If particular process takes more time for in the blocked, you can push it to the second end. Okay. Yeah. So when a process is suspended, the thread also gets suspended. Please try to understand, because which is part of the that particular process. The thread is part of the process. So the basic operations associated with the change in thread state, like a spawn, block, unblock, and finish. Okay, so these are the four states. So spawn is typically when a new process is spawned. Thread for that process is also spawned. Okay, something like suspended. Subsequently, a thread within a process may spawn another thread within the same process. Okay, so that's a chain reaction. And blocking, you know, it's when a thread needs to wait for an event, it will block. The processor may now turn to the execution of another ready thread. It's similar, exactly similar to the what do you call the process block. Unblock. When event occurs, it will unblock. And finish, when a thread completes its register context and stacks are, I mean, when it is created, you will allocate. When you complete, it will deallocate. Okay. Yeah. Okay. This I'll the remote procedure calls, they'll explain in the next. If there are any doubts, you can ask.
No doubts, no.
Yeah, so far whatever I have discussed, maybe from the William Stallings, maybe in the last class also I told, I have shared a Quingly book in the Teams. Please refer that to understand the operating system's basics also, apart from these slides. I mean, I have shared this book as well. Please go through that book. Maybe you need not go through about the kernel objects and all. Please refer the 2 chapters like scheduler and dispatcher, what's the process, those things. Okay. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
So this Saturday is holiday. We won't be having any class. We will be on next Tuesday itself. Yeah.
Excuse me, ma'am. Are you not taking class, or is it a full university-wide holiday?
Holiday. So you have a list of holidays given to you. Please check it.
Ma'am, I think that's on Friday, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, Friday only our next class, right?
Yes, okay, just clarifying. Thank you, ma'am.
Yes. That's what I said. So our class timetable next Friday, since it happens to be holiday that day, we will be meeting next Tuesday. Any confusion?
No, ma'am, got it. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, next we won't be having any holidays, any Tuesdays or Fridays. It will be regular, only these 2. Yeah, we'll leave.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.